Hi, my name is Ian McClarty. I'm president of phoenixNAP, and with me is Jim Lowry from Veeam, senior systems engineer. And today we're going to be covering a guide to easier recovery with trusted immutability. So we're going to start with a little bit of audience participation. We have a couple different questions here. The first question is going to be, what was the average downtime length you experienced in the last 12 months? And this information is anonymous, but it is nice to see a trend. So we will share that after the question is asked. So first answer is several hours. Next is 1 to 5 days, 6 to 10 days, 11 to 20 days, or 21 plus days. And the results. So as we can see from a participation side of the house, quite a bit, 1 to 5 days, which is good. That's depending on the industry, that is not bad. 6 to 10 days starts to get a little dicier. Glad to see that we don't have anybody in the audience with 11, 20 days or 21 plus days. Those are just ending for the enterprise. Next question: what was the cost of the downtime? So, and this is a predominant. I mean, this could be multi-factored, right? So, human error, cyber attack, hardware software failure, a natural disaster, or there's always the other category, some unforeseen circumstance. And again, anonymous information, and we're going to share the results with the audience in a couple seconds here. So interesting. So quite a bit of hardware software failure, and I think some of the data that we're going to present in a couple minutes is going to validate some of this, and also human error. I am kind of surprised to see cyber attack being so low, but maybe we can cover a little bit more of that, and please, any Q&A at the end would be appreciated. Okay, so what does it mean in 2023 to see outages, and what kind of data loss does that really mean? What does that incur? So a couple of these stats that I found interesting for this year was the increased cost, and this is just average numbers, right, across multiple sectors, but 4.35 million on the average cost of a data breach. But you look at the healthcare sector, that was kind of a bit of an outlier, really driving up more of the averages at the 7.13 million in the healthcare sector. And the healthcare sector is one of the largest under attack at the moment too, as well as a sector by itself. So very interesting there, but also some of the things that are outside of your control as well. 63% of organizations that have outages are caused by external IT providers or IT vendors, or think of your public cloud, major outages in public cloud that happen. All these things are classified as external. So there are a lot of things outside your control, not just like the bad actors coming after your data and your network, but there are also external factors that you need to be cognizant of, and that are, you may be running a very tight shop, but there are factors that can influence that downtime. And the other one that I found very interesting was the almost 80% of organizations that have a protection gap. What does that mean? If you think of your business continuity and resiliency plans, a lot of times you need to really hone in on how long can I be offline with this data by the time I recover. So snapshots may be done on a weekly basis. You may have weekly backups, but if you have a very high velocity, high parts of your business that are day of type information, that's going to be too much of a gap. Even though that seems like a better business practice at a week, even sometimes nightly backups are not enough. So having a continuous backup strategy is usually the best strategy to have. That way your data is always as close to in sync as it can be. So what is the impact of downtime? And again, this is more from a high level, but a couple different things here that are interesting. These are not standalone. They all correlate with each other. So they're not mutually exclusive. Lost revenue and increased costs, data loss, brand reputation damage, lost productivity. When you have a downtime, they are impacted at the same time. All these levers are a force multiplier on negativity against a downtime. So there's always the loss of revenue, your employees, your having to give SLAs to clients, operational people not being able to get their job done, data loss, just the information that you will not be able to recover. Period. That's not there anymore. It's just lost. That could be customer information, unfortunately. That could be information on accounts receivable. There's a lot of information that is very important to the organization to stay afloat, to stay in business. That can be just gone. And again, that goes back to brand reputation damage. Your customers aren't going to be happy about that. The market's not going to be happy about that. And lost productivity. Your employees, as they scramble to try to appease clients as these outages are going down, this downtime. That takes up a lot of cycles. Your management team has to oversight. Your IT folks that are trying to recover the services and get everything back up and running. It's very detrimental to the business, and the lost productivity can be, as we saw, in the minimum hours a day. But we do see industries that are impacted in these outages because of the size. You're talking about weeks, not days or hours. So imagine the lost productivity and the brand reputation damage when these outages get to that certain scale. So we're going to talk about a little bit of root cause of some of the outages. And these data points are not mutually exclusive also. So we find that a cybersecurity event may be the trigger, it might be the biggest impact, say like phishing attack, but that could have other damage, like all of a sudden your application goes offline. The credentials are there now, they can start taking your application offline. Your infrastructure, your network, credentials get passed over in the cyber attack to take down your network. So typically attacks have become more advanced. They're multifaceted. They're not single sourced. Very rarely is it just an administrator configure. It does happen, and that was shown in the polls from earlier today. But these attacks, these sources are not mutually or single sourced. They're multi-sourced, or they have multi impact. If you think about, one of the things that came up also was server hardware, storage hardware, right? That's also infrastructure related, that's network related. So all these things are correlated with each other. A large public cloud outage, for example, how do you classify that? Did my server go offline? My storage went offline? Maybe there's a configuration error on the public cloud that was caused by a phishing attempt. So these things happen, and these events are very much intertwined. Kind of hit upon a little bit of the phishing ransomware attacks. What we are seeing in the industry in multiple sectors is an increase in the attempts for phishing. So just look at all the phishing emails that you personally get in your inbox every day. That's an attack trying to get in, and just because you catch it doesn't mean that the next person next to you is going to catch it as well. So there's always a comprehensive side to the house. Veeam offers great solutions for this. We believe we offer great solutions for this, but it's a holistic approach, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we start first trying to avoid the attack. So a lot of education, a lot of security awareness goes back into your team and into your staff. And then on the back end, you have to assume that a breach is going to happen, and so you have to prepare your staff, your team, your vendors for those kind of failovers, for those processes, for that development that you have to do to be able to ensure that you will be up and running. So it is a holistic approach. In ransomware, again, it's on the rise. We're seeing it, every organization out there has some kind of ransomware attempt, if not a successful attempt or a breach. Everybody's being targeted right now. So what are the industries at risk? I would say all industries. I mean, these numbers, even at like the lowest of the federal government reported information, right, 58% is it's pretty high. I mean, if you look at media, leisure, entertainment, retail, very high. But what gets really concerning is our energy, oil and gas, and utilities on the significant rise. Our core infrastructure in every country is under attack right now, and these are real attacks. I mean, so industries at risk, I mean, they can be very impactful. Yes, it's terrible when you can't, as a consumer, go shopping online or get services. But it's even more detrimental when utility companies are being attacked, and all of a sudden a whole neighborhood is offline, or multiple areas of the city are offline. Very disruptive. Also, core to supply chain, distribution, and transport, they've been under heavier attack these last couple of years. And business and professional services, those organizations that support all this infrastructure, they're all intertwined, under attack as well. And so is the healthcare. And healthcare is concerning because all the life safety issues that happen with healthcare. I mean, if a hospital goes offline during an attack, risk much higher. If data is not there for a patient that is lost, it makes it much harder to retrieve that information, also to service that it might be a life safety issue there that needs to be dealt with when that information is not readily available. So how do you minimize data-related business disruption? So it's definitely multifaceted. There isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, but there are a lot of good things you can put in play to help along the way. Offsite backups, that part of the 3-2-1 strategy, Veeam had since the beginning. That was one of their core campaigns and tenets, right, of belief, and we believe in it. Having multiple backups, part of the three, having multiple data, multiple media sources, and then having it offsite somewhere, not having it even readily available from a physical perspective. Virtual perspective, yes, readily available. For physical, somewhere offsite. It really helps minimize some of that, but it's part of that multi-layer protection strategy. One of the nice things about Veeam is that it offers other mechanisms in place to offer more layers of protection. Immutability is great, and Jim is going to go more into details about that. But other aspects of object lock and insider protection, they all work with each other, and they're nice benefits of the Veeam ecosystem and easy to enable. Continuous backups, I kind of hinted on that. You really want to have that data as live as possible. You want to lower that RPO as much as possible. That's going to help you when it comes to recovery time, when it comes to keeping operations up and running. All of these are mechanisms that are very important. Automating your backups, Veeam makes it very easy to do all this. And with automating, you also want to make sure that you have telemetry and oversight. And again, Veeam provides these services to your IT department, so now they can become more of a force multiplier for your staff. Comprehensive solutions as well. So it isn't just about having the backups, it's also having good processes, procedures, security awareness programs, and disaster recovery solutions, so that in the event of a major breach, you have data that you can trust, and you also have a way to fail over and to bring compute back up that you may or may not have access to. And I hinted at this, and Jim's going to go into more details, but so how do you take backups to your next level? Well, a couple of easy mechanisms. Immutable backups. I mean, literally within the Veeam ecosystem, you can just click on it. Insider protection, again, very much of a recycle bin type repository to retrieve some point in time data, right? Where they're accidental or a malicious attack, or a bad actor got through the system and there was a breach. Another mechanism, another layer of protection. But both of these kind of go hand in hand, and Veeam has more, but these are the two we're highlighting because they are also relatively easy to enable and utilize. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim.
Excuse me. Awesome, Ian. Thank you very much for the introduction. So my name is Jim Lowry. I'm a senior systems engineer at Veeam Software and work with phoenixNAP every day. They're one of our flagship customers. We're very grateful to have them as a partner and grateful for the opportunity to help kind of share our story on how we can help better protect your data. So as Ian mentioned, ransomware is a disaster, and it's definitely something that we have to be prepared for. Thankfully, with our tool set and the implementation and brains behind it, the infrastructure offered with phoenixNAP, we have a really, really strong story to tell on how to protect you from ransomware. But there are three really important things to keep in mind. You need to be proactive and not reactive, meaning you want to be putting implementations and designs and security best practices in place and constantly looking at where your vulnerabilities might be, rather than waiting for something to happen and then patching it up or addressing it in the middle of a ransomware attack or some other kind of threat, or waiting till afterwards. You want to be proactive, not reactive. There's multiple strategies because there is no single solution to stop all vectors of attack from ransomware or any other type of malicious attack. You have to adapt and add a lot of different strategies and layers that will help overlap and seal different gaps. And remember that different tools will solve different attack vectors. So that goes back up to bullet number 2. These all build on each other. That there's no single easy button that says, I push this, I install this one piece, and now everything is safe. And you have to make sure you understand what tool you're implementing, why you're implementing it, and exactly what it protects against, so that you can fill in the other pieces and fill in those other gaps with other strategies and other tools. So today, what we're going to go over here is some of the common tools and strategies that we have that are built into our software and integrated very specifically inside of phoenixNAP's infrastructure. And this is not meant to be a complete list. There's definitely other things we can do here, but these are just a bunch of heavy hitters. For example, one thing not on this list that we could spend hours talking about is air gapping. Air gap is still the #1 best way to handle any type of ransomware attack. Typically, people will use air gap to tape because it's familiar, it's cheap, and it works. So, but that's something that we could always have a separate discussion on. But keep in mind that this list is not complete, but we definitely support a lot of different strategies as well within our software, as well as with PNAP's infrastructure, and that we can always come back and do a little bit more detail to figure out what works best for you. So today we'll cover a little bit more detail than Ian, the 3-2-1 rule. What are some different ways we can be proactive with system monitoring using Veeam 1 and the service provider console? We'll go over some backup and recovery validation techniques, hardened Linux repositories, object immutability, as well as using disaster recovery setups using Veeam's CDP or continuous data protection technology. So the 3-2-1 rule, what is it? It's 3 different copies of data, 2 different media, one of those is offsite. Over the years, as ransomware has become more of an issue or other vectors and protection schemes, we've wanted to come out. So we've added another 1-0 to this. So 3-2-1-1-0. First one of those copies of data should be offline, air gapped, or immutable, or all, right? And you want to make sure that when you're recovering something, there are no errors, and you know that those backups or replicas and failovers are going to work. You want to be able to validate that so that every bit is recovered. You want every bit, every byte. And that's one of the beauties of our software, is a value that we deploy so that we can validate that everything is secure, and we can do that in live settings without disrupting production. Right, we can leverage your actual backup copies to do this type of validation check. Ransomware signs. So what do we do to be proactive? How do I detect things in flight? That's actually really difficult to do. How do you know when somebody is actually there encrypting your backup files or trying to delete things or take administrative access control? How do you detect that kind of stuff? It's very hard to find that stuff in the moment. So what we have been able to do is come up with a bunch of different really unique ways to proactively look within your infrastructure and what's being monitored, find patterns, and then determine, hey, these patterns are getting violated. We want to make people aware of this. We'll go over a couple of examples of that. So it's really important to figure out what type of tool, in this case, Veeam 1, and what problem that's going to solve. For Veeam 1, we come with a bunch of pre-configured alarms that are meant specifically to help track things within ransomware attacks, as well as other security type breaches that we'll go over in a little bit. So you want to make sure that you can have these things in place. And so go back one more slide, please. Thank you. The other piece, you want to actively monitor your crown jewels. These are your revenue generating, your critical pieces that if your business loses these, everything is going to fall down the drain. And these are the things that must be up and recovered as quickly as possible. So we want to make sure that at a minimum, that those are protected and solid as best as you can. So let's go over a couple of examples. So ransomware signs, what are things that we can do? What are some of these alarms that we can create, either custom alarms or stuff that's pre-configured inside of Veeam 1 already? Well, one of them would be, what if you have a malicious user who's been trying to get to your data that you haven't noticed yet, but all the data has been protected. They haven't been able to encrypt, delete anything. It's all immutable. It's all set and ready to go. And we'll cover immutable in a moment. But no, everything they've done so far, they've been thwarted. Well, okay. Well, what if they go in and try to change something that's immutable now and say, no longer make these backups immutable? So then I can go in and take off all of the new backups and start manipulating that data and encrypting that and trying to steal that information because they haven't been caught yet. One of the things that Veeam 1 will monitor for is that exactly that. Hey, has anything tried to change the immutable setting of a particular piece of data or of a repository or a backup job? Has anybody tried to manipulate that so that they can try to steal something that's coming in the future versus stuff they couldn't get to in the past? So you can see here in the screenshot that you're seeing the immutability state, this thing was flagged, somebody tried to change this Amazon S3 bucket, what am I going to do? So now you can go in and check to say that it was as expected. Maybe it's a new web deployment and it wasn't configured as an immutable objects repository. So you've changed that, and so we detected that that was changed. But the idea here is to give you that proactive, something's happening, somebody's manipulating something that's critically important for you. Go find out why, okay? And this comes up with other options too. So how many people have been trying to log into the vCenter system? How many people have been, go back one more slide, please, thank you. What are we seeing with anomalous CPU spikes? Do we see things on a report that's trended over time that all of a sudden VMware host number 2 sitting in Toronto data center at 11:30 a.m. CPU 2 is now bumped up super high on that host, and that's very abnormal for that workload at that time frame, right? And all of a sudden you have an idea of somebody might be in there trying to encrypt files, because that's the cyber rhythm you would expect, something abnormal, and then all of a sudden the CPU spike threshold goes above what you expected. And you can actually define what those thresholds are, 5%, 10%, 15%. So it kind of gives you an idea of what to look for. So this is a good example of what of that list of somebody has encrypted your backup files. So take a look at this picture here. You can see the size of the files in the right column, and then in the left column, you'll see that one's a VBK or a full backup file, and the next one below that is a VIB or an incremental backup file. An incremental should be just the data that changed, not all of the blocks that are similar. So we've got in the full backup file, the second line says in the size column, it's 77 gigabytes. Okay, now I look at the incremental file, and if all of a sudden it's 72 gigabytes. That sounds like a pretty fishy thing here, especially if you look at the timestamps on when that was modified. It happened within less than 90 minutes. All of a sudden, my incremental job ran, and it was almost the exact same size as my full. It's very hard to imagine that that's legitimate, that 73 gigabytes or 72 gigabytes got changed in an hour and a half. So we're uploading everything. So this is a great flag to say, hey, did that get encrypted? Because if it was encrypted, then it would be everything is now unique. We have to send all the unique blocks over again, right? So here's a different tool. The Service Provider Console is a wonderful tool because it gives you insight into your entire install base. It's not meant to be the super granular details that Veeam 1 does, but it gives you a holistic 30,000-foot view over your environment and within what's going on in the stuff you're renting from other service providers, in this case, pNAP, right? So I can use this information, that telemetry that Ian was mentioning earlier, about what's going on in all these different areas. So I can be aware of machines that are failing, backup jobs that are failing, why they're failing, where they're failing, and go to deal with that. And that would include people doing malicious actions. So validation and recovery testing. Veeam's primary purpose in existence is to ensure that your backups are able to be restored as quickly as humanly possible, right? We want restore speed is the most important factor next to restore validation. Those, when we restore things, they'd better be accurate and the data had better be there. The beauty of our software is it allows us to do that. You can set up custom jobs within our software, and pNAP supports this beautifully, to be able to spin up off your backup copies using and validate that those blocks are there. You have custom testing that you can do. You can spin this can be a scheduled job where you say once a month, once a week, whatever. I want you to go spin up all of these machines. Here's some custom scripts to validate the checks that the data is still good, and spin it back down and then send you a report. Was it successful? Or if it failed, what were those failures and what can we do to fix them? All of that would be listed inside that report. So you can validate that every data bit is valid and secure at a moment's notice, and you can automate all of that. And that's also true for disaster recovery plans, where I can use different tools to validate that my DR plan will work. I can use a test environment to say, take over these crown jewel DR plan replicas of my most critical applications, which would include servers for, any web servers, file share servers, SQL databases, domain controllers, anything, custom application servers, anything you need that's part of that application to run. And you can set it up so that you can make sure things boot properly in the right order. So I can turn on my Active Directory server and my SQL server, power those on first, wait 10 minutes, validate that those are connected and that the databases are now online. Then turn on the other 3 machines that I need and my custom application server so that I know everything's able to connect and talk to each other. You have complete control to automate that entire failover. And because we can automate all of that, and we're leveraging the DR site in this case to manipulate all of that, I can turn those things on from the target side, turn them on, check everything, validate that it's all successfully coming up and working perfectly on my DR site assets without ever impacting production. And validate that your DR plans work. And if they didn't, we have a list in that report that we create, what failed, where you need to look at trying to fix things. So it makes it very, very powerful and very safe to secure and know that your data is not only protected, but you can come online in the event of a disaster. Hardened Linux repositories. This is a very important tool that you can use to protect with using repositories that are physical Linux-based machines, where we can harden the entire Linux machine and kernel so that malicious people cannot get inside of it. And we can leverage XFS file system to make sure that all of those data protection and those blocks, data being written, are immutable, that there's no way to go in there and absolutely encrypt, change, edit, delete anything of those data that you've marked to be immutable using a XFS file system. It's a wonderful tool. One of the things you have to be aware of, and this is why layers are important, of different ways to protect. In Linux, just by nature of Linux, the root user or sudo user has complete control to everything. So a sudo user cannot go in and delete the files within a volume that's been made immutable. That won't work. There are no God rights for that. Doesn't work. But they can delete the volume. So they don't have to manipulate the data. They can just remove the volume entirely. So it's a great tool. It does things very well. But again, it's not a one tool fits all. So how do I protect against malicious users deleting that root volume? This is an example of what it looks like and how to set things up. Some of the things that are locked down. So it's physical hardware on Linux, single-use credentials to validate so nobody can steal them and reuse them, immutability, kernel lockdowns, etc. So next slide, and we'll answer the question of how do I fill the gap created by a root user here? Well, that's using our other immutability strategies. So using immutability is important. What immutability is, so immutability means there is no way, in any way possible, to alter data. It's been flagged. In this case, we're using object. In the previous slide, it was showing you all the different ways that I can apply immutability. All the different places I can put immutable storage. I can use hardened Linux repositories in XFS. I can take a copy of every backup the moment that job is done running, and I can put that into object, in both blob, object in Azure, or S3 in Amazon, or any S3 compatible storage device that is object-based. We can make all of that immutable. So immutability meaning it cannot be edited, it cannot be deleted, it cannot be changed. There's no way to enforce this, to break that enforcement. For however long you marked that system and that object to be immutable, nothing can change it. And that's critical to understand because there are no God rights in true immutability. Some vendors will use different things to say, I have in support in the event of an emergency and you really need to delete something or recover something that's really critical. I'm sorry, not recover something, but delete something that's immutable. Fine, we have these mechanisms put in place where if you call support, we can get 4 or 5 different people within high levels access within that particular company. Then they would have a way to go in there and manipulate the immutable data files, right? That defeats the purpose of immutability. That's not really immutable because there's a workaround. True immutability, true worm, write once, read many, means there is no workaround. It is immutably protected. If we build in a workaround with God rights, then that opens a vector of attack that somebody could overcome. So it's important to remember that when you need immutability, you need real immutability where nothing can change that file. Otherwise, you've opened yourself up to a gap, thinking you're protected when there's an avenue that's potentially exploited and you're not aware of it. Okay? So this screenshot here shows an example of somebody trying to delete a Veeam backup file. In the top screen picture, you can see in the green highlight that we've tried to delete something, we've said we want to do so, and then you can look in the file itself and say that it's marked immutable. So we're looking inside of in this case, a Linux repository. And you can see that it's all flagged as immutable, I, and nobody can adjust it. So you can, and the backup trying to delete something, that it failed because it's already immutable and you can't be marked for deletion until that timestamp is met that you defined in your policy. And that's the timeline that's highlighted in that green square box. Once that's done, then that file can be deleted. But by that point, you're okay with it because that's the time frame you told it to be able to remove at that point. Retention and immutability timestamps. So continuous data protection, or CDP. This level of protection is meant to be full site failovers. So, or you have the ability to automate and have this completely orchestrated without human intervention once you've set this up. In PNAP, we have hundreds of customers using this exact thing, where they can come into their environment and use PNAP as their DR site, using something like VMware Cloud Director or other utilities, where I can say this data center gets nuked or created with a meteor. I have it so it can automatically, without any human intervention at all, fail over into that DR site and start running immediately. And I can validate all of this can happen using our validation testing that we talked about a few minutes ago in a previous slide, about how we can use all of this to coordinate an entire data center running inside of a PNAP's data center as a target, and be able to do that with all of your data that you are critical for you to protect, that you really need to have over there. It's incredibly powerful what continuous data protection can do. And what's nice about it is that the RTO time frame for here, we're looking at in seconds. We're not talking about data that was an hour old or 3 months old. That was the first time I could recover something. With this, I can go back and recover my most recent replicas, which were seconds ago, and have my stuff up and running without any data loss whatsoever. And so it's incredibly powerful. And like as mentioned at the beginning, there are many different security aspects that we have in place within our software that PNAP takes full advantage of, including secure restore, where I can spin up an image of a file, even though I know it's infected. I can spin it up, and it's marked immutable, so I can't delete that infection per se, but I can spin that up in a secure restore environment. I can pull out all the stuff I need. I can remove the data that I don't need, that's the malicious actor, and save that as part of a different immutable block. And boot things up, secure it, remove it from anything malicious, and then put it back on the network publicly so that people can access it knowing that it's not infected anymore. You have so many other avenues within that are multi-factor authentication to get access to, insider protection, to be able to delete files maliciously or accidentally and recover those backup files. And I would love to have a chance to follow up with you guys about any of those questions and any other questions about things that we presented here today about the Veeam portfolio and how PNAP can help you resolve them.
Thank you very much. So as Jim mentioned, the Veeam ecosystem has a lot of strong features, a lot of functionality, a lot of telemetry. Even though it looks complex, and it really is complex what Veeam does, the end user or the end client looking at the interface is very simple and very WYSIWYG. It's relatively easy to set up these things, even though there's a lot of back-end work that's happening. With that, we do have a couple of services that are very much in line with that. Backup and recovery as a service. and disaster recovery as a service. Both go hand in hand. They're predominantly VMware focused. There is some Hyper-V support, but most workloads that we see are VMware focused. We provide an easy way for clients to be able to do offsite backups to their data, but also a easy way for clients to be able to do failover and disaster recovery services, and make it very OpEx based. So these services are not a huge upfront capital expense. They are consumption-based services. So for what you use is what you pay. A couple of things happened over the several years. One of them, we've been doing disaster recovery as a service for many years now, and we got on the Gartner market guide. We've been on the market guide now going on 3 years. It has been it was a good validation point for our organization, being recognized by leading analysts such as Gartner, along with other very strong companies in there. And so our expertise and our experience has really been validated and has by third parties, and we're starting to see more recognition around that. So a little bit about us. We talk about phoenixNAP itself, and we do have a strong disaster recovery and security posture, but we are a global company. We are not just in the United States, but we're also have a strong presence in Europe, a little bit in Asia Pac, and some in South America. Most of our customers are US or European clients that are trying to either go into the US or other regions, or US clients trying to get into the rest of the world. So that's typically the use cases that we see. That's why we have built out locations and are adding more as we progress. One of the benefits of an organization like ourselves that offers multiple product lines and has a wide reach is the fact that we have a lot of bandwidth infrastructure, and bandwidth infrastructure is critical for those offsite data backups. We have a very big pipe from an internet perspective, and that helps get that data across the wire over to our data centers that can be relatively close to your location. We've covered a pretty wide gamut of Veeam services that are specific to phoenixNAP. The first is Data Security Cloud, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's really it's a virtualized service that is heavy on compliance, has a strong security posture, and has best business practices at its core. It gets third-party audited every year. We also have Veeam Cloud Connect that we have been talking about as being that offsite backup to your on-prem solution. We also have managed backup services from Microsoft 365. So one of the things that a lot of organizations will realize is that O365 itself does not have a very robust backup and recovery mechanism. They think their data is safe. You still need to be following the better business practices, so 3-2-1 and 1-0, right? Those practices, and because of need and necessity, Veeam embraced that market and makes it also relatively easy to do offsite backups of your O365 information. And also we have a Veeam disaster recovery solution as well. So again, we talk about having the data available to and readily available to you, but also you need a point of presence, some site that is third party, that is out of your zone, in case there's a natural disaster or some catastrophic event. You have a place you can actually bring up infrastructure stacks in a easy to recover methodology. And I don't want to make it a pure product pitch for Data Security Cloud, but it is a strong product. Again, a lot of compliance today, gets third-party audited for PCI compliance. It also has HIPAA-ready controls in place. So we will do BAA signatures on this platform. With the healthcare market being one of the heaviest targeted, we do become a good outside point. A lot of different industries leverage this product line, but really we're using tried and true services, technology that you know. A lot of VMware-centric stacks, microsegmentation is built at its heart. We're leveraging the best security posture pieces that every vendor that we utilize has, and glue it all together and provide it as a service model. So just wrapping up, so why Veeam plus phoenixNAP? A couple different points. First, everything that we do is OpEx-based models, so we make it very easy to get in, make it very affordable. You don't have these large capital expenditures, these massive arrays you got to purchase that are in tens of thousands of dollars. We make an easy consumption model available to you. Reliability, we have 24/7 people, security personnel. We have personnel for cloud. You can get a hold of a live person 24/7 within phoenixNAP. That's not just email, but phone, chat, live chat, and even Slack now. We're doing Slack messaging quite a bit for our clients as well. And we're getting really good feedback. Like clients, like we try to adapt to how they like to communicate. Fast recovery, near instantly recoverable from disasters. So very quick, a very another way to minimize downtime. All those 4 key points that I mentioned that work against you when downtime occurs. It's another way to time is your biggest threat. And so the more you can decrease that time to recover, the better. The fallout and the blast radius from those 4 different effects are going to be minimized that way. Redundancy and automation. So we're very redundant in the locations that where we're at, but we also invest quite a bit in automation tools and try to leverage the Veeam infrastructure for that as well. They have a lot of good APIs, a lot of good ways to do these things. So it becomes easier. Also on your end, you can also set up your Veeam infrastructure, going back to that single pane of glass at the last point. Very easy mechanisms to actually set up these services. And Veeam provides the telemetry to validate that these services are in fact doing what they are supposed to be doing. But nothing better than also doing some failover testing. So that's something else that we offer our clients that are doing disaster recovery type services, is some failover testing methodologies for them to be able to validate that the things that they have in protection are actually in a good place. We do have a small promotion available, and again, it's not just limited to 5 terabytes of data. It's a try before you buy type system. Love to have a conversation with anybody from the audience. There's a 5 TB available at sales@phoenixNAP.com that we will do. But again, if you need more validation time or you need a bigger pool, please let us have a conversation with you. We'd love to listen to your needs. And one more poll question, and then we go to the giveaway. So, would you like to talk to our experts about data availability solutions? Quick yes, please contact me, maybe some other time, or not at this time. And with that, we have some Q&A available. So yeah, please, let's make it an interactive experience. Anybody that has questions, after the Q&A, we will be doing the Amazon gift giveaways. But please, if you have any good questions to ask, this is a good audience here. And looks like I'm getting a couple here. So the first one, what workloads can Veeam backup and replication protect? Virtual, physical, cloud applications, shared files. And I can answer that. I mean, Veeam itself covers all of the above. It actually something we didn't even discuss, but it has more availability for other services past this even that are microservices, for example, that are Kubernetes-based services. So Veeam ecosystem is very strong when it comes to not just the physical, the virtual, but even now the container. So it covers a pretty wide breadth, and even hyperscaler with O365 backups in place. Let me see here. Maybe, and this might be more of a Jim question. Can I use VM storage for immutability, or is it better to choose a physical server storage?
So, sorry, excuse me. So immutability wouldn't be taking place at the VM storage level. It would be taking place either in a Linux XFS file system. So if your server is a Linux server as a repository and you're using XFS, then yeah, you can use immutability. And if you're going to use a Linux hardware server, we always recommend to use the XFS file system anyway to take advantage of CBT, change block tracking, and fast home. REFS, which we also recommend, does not support immutability, so we can't do it there. But otherwise, you'd be using immutability at the object level. So as of V12, you can use object immutability for pretty much every workload. You can go directly to object for NAS jobs, backup copy jobs. All of that would be able to support native immutability through the S3I or blob API structures. So for us, it's either XFS or we're using blob immutable API calls to target objects as immutable. You also have the ability to support a tape vendor. So tape vendors will very often use Worm, write once, read many software that they create, which is immutable software. It's just that vendor controls it, not us. But we fully support that. So if you're using backups to tape for archive storage, and that vendor uses Worm or immutable storage for long term, that's fully supported as well.
Thank you, Jim. And then another one from the audience, one more. So can you see the offsite data? And the answer is yes, we can. Thank you for asking that. We have seeding servers that we do ship out. You know, obviously, when somebody needs to seed, typically it's a large array that they need. We do have multiple almost half petabyte type systems set up. But if they're bigger than that, then we definitely would like to have a conversation about that. This is a way for us to help. We realize that some clients don't have the pipe, or maybe they have too big of an array, and so we do have mechanisms in place already to help alleviate that concern.
What's beautiful is that you can use any of the Veeam backups you have over there to seed other Veeam backup jobs or replica jobs too. So
yes,
you don't have to create a seed for different workloads if it's the same image of the machine.
Yeah,
You can leverage that.
Really good point. Thank you, Jim. And with that, I would like to thank Jim for his time and presentation. I would like to thank the audience for your time and participation as well. And if you need to any additional reach out, we're readily available at sales@phoenixNAP.com, or we're also available from a web perspective, live chat. We try to make it very easy to contact and reach out. And with that, thank you again.